All right, guys. So this review that we're going through today, the PDF you see behind me is actually shared on Classroom, so everybody should have it. There is one tiny adjustment. Everybody, please be writing this down on paper because obviously this PDF, yes, some of the stuff will be there, but it will be really, really helpful for you to have in your notes for the day we're doing A, reviews, or B, going through the test and stuff like that. Because this is a math program, anytime I type two letters together, it makes it squared. So there's one thing you better know by the end of this chapter, and that's the SOHCAHTOA thing. That's one thing, all three together. So please, very big, maybe at the top of the margin where that blank spot is, where some people usually write their name at the very top. I would do this almost on every piece of paper when you take the test. Across the top right, SOHCAHTOA. Please remember, SO stands for sign. And this is where I left off 1P because the math program made it P squared. So it's opposite over hypotenuse. So if you want to, I know on this right here, it just says OP, but if you want to write another OPP. So I am going to write this at the top of our board. That way it's always there and I will not erase it. But I did want to have it typed in there just for the people who are not necessarily with us right now. So we all remember that. Sine of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine of theta is CA. So SCOS is A in the numerator and H in the denominator. And then TOA is standing for tangent. And again, my OP would have turned into squared. So I need to turn that into OPP over ADJ. All right, something else that actually did come up, and I know, guys, sorry, I wrote that a little bit near the top of the board. It's kind of in the shadowed area just a little bit, but I think you can read it okay. Something that actually came up on question number 2, or it should have come up on question number 2, from the homework that was due later where you had to solve for all parts. Please remember this thing right here is called Pythagorean's theorem. I typed it on this review because on Thursday, I'm going to add another page to it. Today, we don't need to use this, but I wanted it at the top because this is another very, very important equation you need to know and have sort of memorized for our test. Okay. I know you can use notes, but it really helps out if you have these things memorized and don't always have to look through them again. All right. So guys, I know I said I don't need you to be unmuted. I might kind of call on a couple of you once in a while. And whether respond by unmuting yourself or respond by typing something in the chat, either way is okay. Please remember, I left it at the top of the board so we could see it. When you get to something where it says, find the value of each trigonomic ratio, please remember a ratio is a fraction. And so you will leave your answer, actually in number 1 through 6, you will leave your answer as a fraction. Ladies and gentlemen, I am calling this a review, but it is going to be something that eventually you will have to submit a picture of. So we're going to do some of this together. You are going to be required to do some of it on your own. And just the way my lecture sometimes goes when I do this, you might be able to do all of it like as I am kind of working through some of it. So please remember, since our answer is supposed to be a fraction, we should always try to reduce it if we can. All right, guys, I'm going to kind of weave through the room like I sometimes do, which on my Google Classroom page right here, that means you are alphabetical order, first name. Again, you don't have to unmute yourself, but please, in the Google chat, if you need to do it that way, Amir, on question number 1, if we want to find the hypotenuse, and I want everybody to label the hypotenuse first, would you please tell me what number in number 1 represents the hypotenuse? Amir, can you tell me for number 1 if you have, I know it might be hard to see on this screen here, but remember you have this Google Doc PDF shared with you. How do we find the hypotenuse in number 1? Oh, thank you. There we go. 29. All right. So right here, we have angle B as marked as the right angle if I go across from it. So, man, guys, if I had this printed out, I would recommend that you write HYP there. But in your notes, you might want to write HYP equals 29. Courtney, you're next. please remember, if we look at this, sine means we only care about hypotenuse. So I'm even going to skip having us label adjacent. Courtney, I need you to put your pencil or finger or circle or something A. And would you please tell me what leg is opposite A? Tell me the number that is opposite of A.
$21.
All right, she looked at that, went across from it, and right here, 21 would be our opposite. Thank you, Courtney. Those are the only two we need for sine. And so my answer for number 1, you guys can write this down on your paper. Sine of A equals 21 over 29. Of course, I should check and see if I can reduce that. 21 only has 3 times 7. 29 does not have a 3 or a 7 in it. So I would put a circle around this because this would be my answer. All right. So if you notice, I wanted to do this again, all the even ones, ladies and gentlemen, and some of the odd ones, all the even ones are definitely going to be homework. So next, number 3, I'm going to slide up a little bit. So I'm going to erase this. I'm going to slide up a little bit for number 3. For number 3, again, one of the most important things to usually label first is the hypotenuse. So DeLauren, if you could please, in number 3, we're looking at number 3. Sorry, guys, I scrolled up a little bit too much. We're looking for the cosine. Good morning, Elijah. I am taping this just so you know, okay? In number 3, DeLauren, excuse me, would you please tell me the hypotenuse in number 3?
41.
Okay. If we go across from the right angle, let's go ahead and write HYP right here next to our 41. Perfect. Now, it is important, and again, sorry guys, right here, cosine of Z. If you're looking at number 3, cosine of Z. So I'm going to circle Z. Earlier, I asked Courtney to go across from that. Devon, you're up next. I need you to tell me, please, what number is next to Z? Remember, adjacent means next to. So Devon, what number is next to Z? Thank you, 40. And it's kind of nice, guys. See, when I actually draw my picture and I put that box around hypotenuse of 41, the only other number next to Z would be 40. And so this would be adjacent. And again, because I accidentally scrolled up just a little bit too much, for the cosine of Z, my answer would therefore be 40 over 41. And I bet you know those are so close together, I cannot reduce those. All right, so let me scroll up a little bit more. For tangent, we need opposite and adjacent, as my paper says over there. So some people still like to find the hypotenuse because it's the easiest one to find. Elijah, you're up, please. You can either unmute yourself or put it in the chat. Would you please look at number 5 and tell me what value is on the hypotenuse? Elijah, can you see the paper? By the way, it is a PDF I shared on Google Classroom. Can you see this okay or no, Elijah? Do you have to pass right now? Okay. Juanita, would you please tell me, again, either in the chat or in the unmuting yourself, what value for number 5 would be our hypotenuse? What number would be our hypotenuse? Thank you, 29. So 29 is our hypotenuse this time. And again, that's because if you go to B and go across from it, it's hypotenuse. And some people say to me, but Miss Jabs, for tangent, we don't need to know the hypotenuse. But remember, it kind of helps us out because that eliminates some of our other ones. Kai, you are up. Please be careful. Remember, it's very important to know what angle we're looking at. So we're looking at angle A here. So I'm going to circle angle A. Now, some people, when I asked Courtney to say, tell me what number is across from her angle, she could tell me that. when I ask Devon to tell me what number is next to it, he can tell me that. Sometimes when we need to know all three, people like to tell me in whatever order they would. So Kai, whether you unmute yourself or type something in there, would you please tell me either like OPP equals this or ADJ equals this? If you're typing, I need to see that. If you're speaking, obviously you can say opposite or adjacent.
Do you want me to say the one that's by it?
Sure, what one is by it?
I would say 21.
It does say 21, and next to it or by it means adjacent. So everybody on we're on number 5. Adjacent is 21, which, thank you, Kai. That means the other leg left. By the way, next to means adjacent. So we got adjacent. Juanita told us hypotenuse. That means the last leg left would be opposite. And again, some people figure out that opposite way before they figure out adjacent. And please look up here at the board to find tangent of our angle. We're supposed to write the opposite number divided by the adjacent number. So if I look at this for number 5, tangent, and remember, it's really important that we were looking at A because Kai said A was next to 21. If it would have been C, next to would have changed up. So 20 over 21. And once again, all of our even ones were not able, all of our odd ones were not able to reduce. I can tell that all of these right here are even numbers. So number 6, when you first write it down, your answer will not be your final answer. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to give an opportunity for you guys to redo that quiz, that online quiz we took. Don't run off to it right now because I'm going to go through all of it. I just wanted to see how well we remembered. Just so you know, numbers 1 through 3 on that quiz we were supposed to work on Thursday are just like what are right behind me right now. What I need everybody to do now, and I know you kind of have the Google Meet open because you're listening to me. I know you have your Google worksheet open from Google Classroom, but I also possibly in the background will need your Desmos open. And I might be holding up my phone for Desmos. Guys, I would recommend a lot of you for this test use Desmos. Whether it's on your phone, you can just go to your Google, like I go to Google all the time. I actually personally have downloaded the Google app, the Desmos app. You don't have to. You can just go through through Google to get to Desmos. If you didn't have so many tabs open, or if you don't care having so many tabs open, you can have Desmos open. I would very, very strongly recommend using Desmos though. So everybody needs to have Desmos ready to go, please. Okay. I am going to leave my SOHCAHTOA at the top of the board because we still need to be using that. But ladies and gentlemen, I would very, very, very strongly recommend writing down these 2 fill in the blanks right here with some examples of what the problems look like. All right. So just so we know, this next section I'm moving into, I'm always going to have an X in it. And when I have that X in the problem, the X in the fraction, in the ratio that we were just working on, will either show up, the X will either be in the numerator or the X will be in the denominator. So please listen to this. And if you need me to repeat it, don't feel afraid to unmute yourself and say, Ms. Jabs, will you reread that? But this is filling in the blanks. So you should see the first half of it on your Google. Reminder, if X is in numerator, I will multiply to solve. Okay? If X is in your numerator, you will multiply to solve. So I'm just totally going to make something up right now. This comes from Miss Jabs making up a problem. So you know once we move down to 7, what I should do to find the answer. So an example would be, what if I have sine of 58 degrees equals X over 42.7. Does everybody see and agree? I would hope you're saying yes, even though you're muted, that X is in the numerator. Yes, it is. So since X is in the numerator, you can honestly just write your number first, but then sine of 58 after it, because that technically means there's a multiplication there, and you would multiply to solve this problem. So when your ratio starts looking like this, to get your answer, you multiply like that. Next blank, though, says, if x is in the denominator, I will swap and divide to solve. If x is in the denominator, I will swap and divide to solve. So let's look at an example of that. Let's say your original ratio looked like tangent of 18 degrees equals 13.1 over x. Does everybody see how x is in the denominator there? Since x is in the denominator, I'm going to circle these two things in my green pen just so we can see a little bit more. I am physically going to pick up those two things and swap their spots. So that means x is going to be by itself. That means x is going to be by itself. That means 13.1 stays where it is. But the tangent of 18 degrees has to move to the bottom. All right? So you never really know where the x is going to show up. But if it shows up in the top, you multiply to solve. If it shows up in the bottom, you divide to solve. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I know it's kind of weird because you can see really well the board behind me. I'm holding up my computer screen right here. Don't forget, you have to click and change that. Guys, we have to make sure at the bottom of this little wrench over here, no matter what type of Desmos you use, you should find that. We want the word degrees in green, not radians. So click on the word degrees. The word degrees should then be in green and radians should now be white. We want degrees to be highlighted in green so that our calculator is working the right way. So please make sure you did that correctly first. All right. So now that I have that written down, I'm going to scroll up just a little bit more and we're going to solve a few of these problems. So number 7. Number 7, it's actually going to be very important that you realize what angle we're given. So I know you guys can see number 7 on your computer screen, but sometimes it is very helpful to have you write this down. Leasia, since I'm going to be calling on you and your name is Leasia, I'm going to call the important angle, angle L. And the important angle in number 7 is the angle that has a number written in it. So I'm going to write an L down here for number 7 because 63 degrees goes down in that angle. So Leasia, would you please either unmute yourself or talk in the chat, please? According to angle L, there's 3 words again, remember, opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. I don't care which order you tell them to me in, whether you type them in the in the chat or if you speak. Would you please tell me what 16 and X represent according to angle L? Thank you. 16 is the hypotenuse. Very nice. So I'm going to write hypotenuse by 16. Very good. X is across from L, and so X is opposite. All right. So Marvielle, Leasia labeled those 2 correctly for us. She did tell us that X was opposite and 16 was hypotenuse. Think about SOHCAHTOA, please. If we have SOHCAHTOA and we have opposite and hypotenuse, which one of those 3 do we want to use? Your answer could be sine, cosine, or tangent. Remember, we have opposite and hypotenuse. Very good. We would like to use sine. So everybody in your room for number 7, remember, I always like to write it down so people know where it comes from. And it's very easy for us to plug in numbers. All right, everybody, you don't have to unmute yourself, but in a second, I'm about to say that theta represents an angle. So I'm about to turn around and write down sine of, and what value is my angle? Good. Hopefully all of you said 63. I know everybody is muted, so you probably said that to yourself and wanted to fill that in. Leasia told us that the opposite leg was X. And so X is going to be in the numerator. Uh-oh, hint from before, X is in the numerator. And that means my hypotenuse is 16. So I'm going to divide by 16. Is X in the numerator? Yes, it is. That means to get my answer, I'm going to use my calculator to type in this. Now, I'm about to type it in Desmos. If people are using different types of calculators, you might want to hang out in the Google Meet after I say we're done and we are excused. But please remember, if you are using your calculator like I am, okay, to get to your sine, cosine, tangent, it's really easy to hit this function button right here. So if you hit that function button right there, all those options should pop up. Marielle, yes.
The link that you sent for this works on my phone, but when I went to my laptop, the link's not showing up.
Okay, I'll try to fix that later, okay?
All right.
Thank you. So when I type in 16 sine of 63, I get that big long answer that goes on, but please remember, most of the time we round to the tenths place. So again, I hope your calculator is showing you this. If it's not showing you this, you need to talk to me after to stay on and make sure you know what's going on. But it looks like our answer for number, what number are we on? Number 7 should be about, because remember, so we're going to put that little approximately symbol, approximately 14.3, because we would round up that 2 because 5 comes next. All right. So X equals 14.3. X equals 14.3. Make sure you get that down, guys. I am going to move on to the next one. Again, we're doing a lot of odd ones together. So let's see. I am up to Mayana. Mayana, since I'm working with Mayana, I'm going to call the angle the M. So I'm going to put an M right here. So again, Mayana, just like Leasia did before, you can either unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat. There are 3 words that you need to figure out what you have for number 9. Opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So you got to tell me something like 12 is the blank and X is the blank. Because remember, this side right here has no information on it. So that's kind of pointless to us. So Mayana, once you get a chance, you're looking at number 9, excuse me. You're looking at number 9. Once you get a chance to talk about number 9.
The hypotenuse is 12.
Thank you.
The adjacent is X.
Very nice. Thank you very much. All right. So we have opposite, opposite is pointless this time. Mayana is correct. The adjacent is X. The hypotenuse is 12. So Arnia, I need you to tell me, please, if we're going to use SOHCAHTOA, what one are we going to use, sine, cosine, or tangent? Arnia, can you hear me? I know you were popping in and out of the meeting a few times.
No, my computer just froze.
Okay. Did you hear that Mayana told us we have adjacent and hypotenuse?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then I said, Arnia, if we have adjacent and hypotenuse, should we use sine, cosine, or tangent?
Adjacent and hypotenuse, we use cosine.
Thank you. So we're going to use which means we're going to use cosine. So just like always, so we know where this comes from. I'm first going to write that out, the whole ratio. And again, this theta symbol represents our angle. Let's look back over here. I called it M, but what is the number that goes in M? Perfect, 61 degrees. Mayana correctly identified that adjacent is X and hypotenuse is 12. Where is X? In the numerator. That means I'm going to multiply to solve. And so I'm going to have 12 cosine of 61 degrees. And again, if I'm saying this answer and showing you on my calculator and you do not get the same thing, you'll want to hang out a couple minutes after my Google meet is over. Again, if I hold this up pretty close, hopefully it focuses pretty well. It looks like 12 cosine of 61, which are the numbers I'm supposed to have. I always just like to double check and make sure. It looks like 12 cosine of 61 is 5.81. Oh, that 1 means I stay at the 8. So 5.8 is approximately what X equals. Okay, so again, if you're not getting these numbers, you want to be hanging out with me just a minute or two after. We got one more like this to go through just to make sure we know what's going on. All right, number 11. Oops, I scrolled up a little bit too high. TJ, I'm up to you. We're going to be working on number 11. Okay, so TJ, make sure you're looking at number 11. But since 26, I know it's kind of tricky to see, but 26 is hiding up over here. So I'm going to call this T right here. And TJ, if you would please let me know, again, like everybody else has, either unmuting themselves or putting it in the Google, you need to tell me what is 16 and what is X. What legs would those be between opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse? What is 16 and what is X?
16 is the opposite.
Okay.
X is the adjacent.
Thank you very much. All right, so we have opposite and adjacent. He is correct with that. There is no number along the hypotenuse. So Victor, we're up to you. If we have SOHCAHTOA, sine, cosine, or tangent, with those letters, what should we use?
Tangent.
Thank you. So we're going to use tangent of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. Theta, of course, for the third time in the row, represents the angle. That's going to be very important in just a minute. Our angle is 26 degrees. It shows us there. Opposite, TJ was correct, is 16. 16 is in the numerator. Our adjacent is X. X is in the denominator. That means I got to physically pick these two up and swap them. Okay, so I'm going to swap those places. And that means that X, in order to get my answer, I'm going to have to type in my calculator 16, but then divide it by the tangent of 26. And so if I use my calculator to do 16 divided by the tangent of 26, just making sure all the numbers are right. Okay, that's what it should look like. It looks a lot like what was on the screen behind me. But that means it looks like X is going to equal about 32.8. That means X is going to equal about 32.8. All right. So that is how we solve for a side. That is how we solve for a side. Guys, just because of how long I've been going, I don't think I'm going to quite do as many examples here on this last set, which might mean you have a few more quote unquote homework, but I got to talk about that, okay? If we look right here on this last, it's the third page for today. I will be adding more pages to this eventually. But if we look at the third page of this, we are now having a question mark where our angle is. So this is very, very important. I would put a big star, kind of like before when you wrote if X is in the numerator, you're going to multiply. If X is in the denominator, you're going to swap and divide. Right here, I would put a star, big star right here. If you are solving for the angle, you must use the inverse. That right there says the word inverse. And please remember, we talked about this, I talked about this on my video, but I'm going to pull my phone up again here. When I click on that functions thing, this first row is sine, cosine, and tangent, my normal ones. But right next to that, I have sine to the negative first, cosine to the negative first, and tangent to the negative first. This middle aisle is what we're going to use now for the last few problems to solve right here. And thank you guys, you have been doing a great job, but just because of where I am, I have to rotate back up. Amir, I am back to you. Okay, so since we're on Amir, where this question mark is, I'm going to call it angle A. So this time, just like everybody else was doing rather correctly, Amir, I need you to tell me there's a number of 33 and a number of 39 on number 13. Would you please tell me what words, opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse, go with 33 and 39? "39 hypotenuse, 33 opposite." Thank you very much. So we have hypotenuse for 39 and 33 for opposite. Hopefully, as he was typing that in, everybody else was thinking that anyway. All right, we've done this a few times. This would be at one point in class. I'm like, all right, on the count of 3, if I say Amir correctly labeled opposite and hypotenuse for us, on the count of 3, you have to say sine, cosine, or tangent. 1, 2, 3, sine. Everybody probably said sine together. I really hope so. So guys, this is where I got to talk, and I'd like you to pay a little bit of attention to this because this is where some of us get a little bit caught. We are going to use sine of theta, and we are going to write opposite over hypotenuse. You know, I always like to write that first. I have stressed so much the last few times that theta represents our angle, but if we look right here, we don't know what it is. Some of us call that X because I called on Amir and I called it A. I'm going to call it A. So right here, I'm going to use sine of A. And again, Amir correctly labeled for us 33 over 39. Now, here's the deal. In all reality, those could reduce, but don't worry about it. We're not trying to reduce it this time. We're trying to solve for A. Please remember, I just showed you on the calculator right there that to get rid of sine, we would have to write the sine to the -1 to make those two cancel. But if we do that on this side, we have to do that on this side. And please remember, order-wise, we have to write it first. So we are going to write sine inverse of 33 over 39. And that's what we're going to type into our calculator. So we got to type that sine inverse first. Remember, to get a fraction on here, you just hit your divided by button and it will already give you a fraction. So we're going to do 33 divided by 39. And guys, our homework always says, please round the angles to a whole number. So I'm saying 57.79. It's 57.7. That 7 would make it round up. And so my answer for A is going to be approximately, sorry, that should actually probably be approximately 58 degrees. All right, guys, I know I spent a lot of time and went through 3 examples of the first set, the second set. Now that I have done this, I am about to scroll up. I would like you to start working on number 15. Hopefully you can see it. If you can't see it, hopefully you can see it decently behind me live. Right now, I know when I put it up there and it's the video of this. But as soon as you get an answer, please wait until I say, hey, if you have an answer already. But since we're moving on, I'm going to call that angle B. Please, by yourself. I am going to go at a little bit of a speed here because we got to get going and I want you guys to have time to do stuff later too. But if that is angle B and you had a label 6 and 14, hopefully you already had kind of done that. Six is adjacent. 14 is hypotenuse. Once again, if I was in class, I'd be like, guys, we have a hypotenuse and adjacent. We have hypotenuse and adjacent. So katoa, which one should we use? Opposite and hypotenuse. Excuse me, adjacent and hypotenuse means we should use. Thank you. So we're going to write cosine of B equals adjacent over hypotenuse. All right, so I've basically gotten you there. If you guys will take maybe 2 or 3 more steps, okay? If you would take 2 or 3 more steps to try to figure out what the final answer is, okay? I'm going to wait about a minute here because I know some people are still writing the process and following the process with me and doing all that work, so I'm not going to give away the answer yet. Because you have to figure out what ratio you're supposed to do. You have to plug it into your calculator. All right, and I hope everybody had enough time. There could be one way or another you submit your answer right now. If you already have your answer, please round to the whole answer. But please either type it in the Google chat on there if you're comfortable unmuting yourself and telling me what your answer is. Everybody should be close enough to done that as we're doing this, it's not bothering anybody too much. So would you please tell me what answer you got? Very good. Yep, good. I'm seeing good answers. Very nice. Perfect. It looks like we're doing really, really well. Oh, TJ, did you say a number?
Yeah, 65.
Thank you. Okay. It looks like I'm getting a lot of 65s and hearing a few 65s as well.
I got 65 too.
Good. Thank you, DeLorean. All right. I think I've heard from most everybody one way or the other. So that's great. Some of you might still have questions. I know a couple of you couldn't necessarily see the Google Doc at the same, or excuse me, the PDF at the same time we were doing this. So I am going to stop recording because the rest of this I'm going to put on Classroom as well. All right. So that way too, if you guys have questions or if you're like, hey, Miss Jabs, I had something else. I'm about to hit stop recording.